My name is Bess Sullivan. Today is March 25th, 1996. I am here to interview Felicia Bankier, who is a survivor of the Nazi Holocaust. I am doing this under the auspices of the Holocaust Documentation and Education Center, Incorporated. The purpose of this interview is to add to the oral history of the Holocaust, so that through this living memorial, future generations will know what happened. With this knowledge, we hope to prevent any such occurrence in the future. Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you please state your name for us and spell it?
Felicia, Felicia, Bankier, Bankier.
What was your name at birth?
Boberman, Boberman.
We're going to begin by talking about the town from which you came. But please tell me first where you were born.
I was born September 14, 1926 in Warsaw, Poland.
And now I'd like to talk about the pre-war years. Where did you grow up?
In Warsaw, born and raised.
Approximately how many people lived in your town, in your city of Warsaw?
I know there was more than 1 million Jews. That was about, I would say, 2.5, 3 million population was in Warsaw.
And the Jewish population?
About 1 million was considered. Maybe a little more than 1 million.
How did most of the people in your town earn their living?
I wasn't that, when the war started, I was 2 weeks before my 13th birthday. But I know that one of my sisters was sewing leather gloves. My father was a butcher. Some were going to school, higher than public, because my father was in 1918, really 14. He went to war with, how to say, by himself. And that's why, being Jews, and he was also had one arm of his did not function, a bullet hit him. So our being Jewish children, we were allowed freely for higher education.
How did he injure his arm? How did that happen?
With a bullet in the war. He was shot.
This was World War
One. And the other people, how I wasn't, I have no idea, because we lived in a Gentile neighborhood. As a matter of fact, over a balcony was the Holy Mother with holding the baby under a glass. So really, I have no idea. I'm sure they were in business, some were working people.
You had a butcher shop.
My father
It was
had
not
a butcher.
kosher butcher shop.
No, it was not a kosher butcher shop.
Now I'd
But
like...
there were no pork.
They didn't sell pork.
No.
Now let's talk a little bit about how your own family lived in Warsaw during those early pre-war years. How many children were in your family?
We were 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls. And I was born when my oldest brother were already married. And when I was 6 months old, I became an aunt.
The 8 children...
I was the baby.
How many were boys and how many were girls?
4 boys and 4 girls.
Could you give me the names of
Yes, Rushka, Ruja, Sabina, Adela, and Felicia. I.
Sabina, Atoa, and the boys?
Roman, Benyek,
Bennett,
Benyek,
Benyek,
Benyek, B. Juzek, and Seth.
Seth,
Seth, yeah, it was Shimon, which it said. Now my grandson is named after him.
what were your parents' names?
My father was Jacob.
And your mother?
Was Malka.
What was your mother's maiden name?
My Futterman. We didn't write it. Furman. Futter. Furtman. Futterman.
And your father earned a living in the butcher shop. Did your mother also work?
No. No, my mother never worked.
How far were you able to go in school?
6th grade. In Poland, we started school when we were 7 years old.
Did your other brothers and sisters go that far too?
Yeah, no, they went higher. Some were already graduated, and some were in. By us, it was gymnasium, and here it's high school. If not the war, I would have also begun after 7th grade.
Were you or your family members of any organizations?
Not that I know, no.
Do you remember any incidents of anti-Semitism that happened to you, your family, or your friends before the war?
Oh, yes. They used to, I went to a Catholic school. There were only 3 Jewish children because we lived in that neighborhood. And they used to make fun of me. They used to sing a song, "Hey Jew, over you is Palestine. When Hitler will come, he will cut your heads and it will finish you Jewish Palestine." That was, in Polish, it sounds much different. If you want me, I can speak it in Polish.
Would you do that?
Yeah. Hej Żydzi wraz, nad wami Palestyna, a przeciw was hitlerski stoi nóż. Gdy przyjdzie Hitler, głowy wam pościna i skończy się żydowska Palestyna. That's a song.
And they used to do this often?
Yeah, very often. Or stay behind me and pick one of mine hair and make like that I have lice and I was much cleaner than they. We had to wear special clothes with white little collars and black little dresses. All girls wore the same and all boys wore.
Did they do these same things to your brothers and sisters?
They must have. I never complained. And I had a friend, and they had a store where they were selling material to make dresses and suits. They knocked their windows out. And it wasn't easy when right after when Hitler came in, my father used to come home and cry. He looked very gentle, but he saw what the Germans were doing to some Jewish men. For the ones with the beard, they used to tear the beard out of them faces, and they used to wear those pious. They used to grab him and pull him down and beat him up, and they didn't bother him because he looked very gentle and he was blonde.
Did they do any other kinds of physical abuse to you?
Not to me, but they took away my brother.
I mean, while you were in school, did they do any other
Oh,
abusive
no,
things?
no, but they used to make fun, and it was no picnic.
Did any of the students stand up for you and try to discourage you?
No, really, they were laughing, you know. Maybe I had a couple of girls, gentle, they were my friend, and sometimes they told them to stop. But I was used to it.
The teachers didn't try to stop them.
That was really when we stayed in the line, not in the classroom. When we stayed in the line to go in to the classroom.
Now we'd like to discuss the time that Hitler was on the rise to power in Europe, before the war came to your country and before your town was occupied. During the pre-war years, what did you hear about what was happening in Germany?
Not very much, because it started by us, my father being a butcher. After 1935, they didn't let to kill the cows kosher, to make the meat kosher. There was a Mrs. Beck, and she insisted to shoot the animals and not cut their throat by a scheuchet, sorry to say. And from then on, it was very bad. I know our life changed a lot, my father being a butcher.
Although he had the butcher shop, he still was able to sell kosher meat.
But it was already more quieter than he had bought ways, because we had it really in Gentile neighborhood. But there were people that came to buy kosher meats, some Jews around. I'd never been much in the business. All I knew was go to school, come home, do my homework, and then go down play. We lived in an apartment building with 220 tenants lived. So we played inside on the concrete, really. We didn't have grass or...
Did your parents discuss with you very much what was going on in Germany?
No, they didn't.
How did your everyday life change as Hitler started coming in?
Oh, may I correct something? I just remind myself. End of 1938 and 39, a lot of German Jews came to Warsaw. I don't know, they must to Poland, but I know that things were not good in Germany. And they did came, some German Jews to Poland. Poland took them in 1938 and 39, so we knew things were not good in Germany for a Jew. I knew then already. I forgot about it. But then when the German Jews start coming, we knew things were not good.
When they came, did they come to your part of the city too?
Yes, they were everywhere.
What did your family do to help them?
Nothing. The Germans?
To help the Jews that came to Warsaw?
Oh, I know my father used to give them meat, the ones that couldn't afford them. On Thursday, I know they used to come and he made sure they had enough.
Where did they live?
This I wouldn't know. This I wouldn't know. We couldn't take him in because even when the war, before the war even, we were still 5 children home. And I was 13. And
did you or any members of your family try to leave Warsaw at this time?
Not until The bombs were flying, and we tried to get out of the city, uh, and but it was not so good because the bombs, and at night they was flying, I don't know, shrapnels, you know, they were and Warsaw was burning, so we got out to our farm, and we had a maid at home. And we got out to their farm, and they had a dig-in. We stayed underground, and then we came back after the Germans no more walked into Warsaw. It was on the other side, so it wasn't so bad. By the Wisla, in Prague, it called, where the bridges were connecting from Prague to Warsaw. That's where the most that they were shooting and bombs were flying, but on the other side, and the farmland was already quiet, but it was still bad about a week in Warsaw until the Poles put up a big fight, not to, and then they had to give up because there were no food, there were no water, and they had to let the German in. But the biggest fight was outside Warsaw.
When you left your home to go to the farm, did you come back to Warsaw again?
Oh yes, we
It
came
was just
back.
for a week.
Yes, maybe 10 days.
Can you tell us about how you lived during those 10 days?
Well, we had food in the farm. They fed us, the farmers. Their daughter name was Stefka, and they took care of us.
When you say you lived underground, under the ground,
Well, it wasn't under, it was like they kept their potatoes
like a
in
cellar.
a cellar, really, but it wasn't under their house. It was in the fields by the house. It was, they kept carrots there and parsley and for their use, and it was covered with ground, so it kept good.
Can you describe to us what it was like under there?
Well, at night we went out a little to catch some air. In daytime we were there, all of us. At night they cooked. They did have water. Warsaw did not have. They used to go to the Wisla. We found out later from my brother how they got the water. And but they had a pump, so the water, we did have fresh water. It was only me and my brother and one of my sisters and my father and mother.
So you
The
lived,
rest was in the city.
you lived on that farm for about
10 days, 11 days, just before the German came close to Warsaw. We got out.
And then from the farm, you came back to your
We came
home.
back, and we couldn't open the door to our apartment because it hit, it's called a shrapnel. I have no idea in English how to say.
Shrapnel?
A shrapnel, that was like a long, at night they were sending it,
Like a missile.
a missile. That's a shrapnel, yeah, but a big one. And the landlord lived under us on the 4th floor. We lived on the 5th. His apartment was completely damaged. As a matter of fact, he said to my father when we came back that, Panie Boberman, the Holy Mother saved your apartment because she was right over our balcony.
So when
Yes,
you-
we had a problem to open the door because the floor, I remember, got sort of bulky.
That you did get the door
We
open.
did get the door open, and nothing was except the door and a little wooden floor, and the entry was damaged. And
How long were you able to stay there when you went
we
back?
stayed almost 3 months.
And it was livable?
That was all. As a matter of fact, our maid, Stefka, she stayed still with my father. And he left her the apartment with all the furniture, with everything. And we told her, if we don't come back, we paid the rent for 3 months. And after 3 months, if you don't see us, to clear and take it for herself. Take it to the farm, the furniture. And she said she will keep it for us when we return. But we never came back to Warsaw
But
after the war.
no, but you were there for 3 months. And then
3
what
months.
happened after those 3 months?
After those 3 months, my brother was 16 years old. They came to the apartment, like somebody told him where Jews live. They took him out, and we never saw him again. And sent him to Germany, and we never saw him again.
Now, when you came back to Warsaw, was your father able to go back to his butcher shop and work?
My father died 1942 of typhus.
But he was still alive when you were in Warsaw and on the farm. He was on the,
Yes.
but when you came back to Warsaw for those
Yes,
3
my
months,
father was alive, yes.
and he was able to...
Yes, as a matter of fact, the Germans said that they knew a lot of Jews were living. And they knew my father was Jewish. So there was an older German guy, and he said to my father, I hope, Jacob, that you're not going to live or run. I will take care of you. He said, not a hair from your head will be missing. And he did not listen to them. My sister, so what happened after my brother did not return? My oldest brother, I have the picture here, had a wife and 3 children, and did not want to live to run. He looked Polish, Gentile, blonde. He said, I will survive. I have good friends, Gentile. They will take care of me. And he did not want to. Then a cousin of ours survived, and he saw him still 1942 in Warsaw Ghetto with my sister-in-law and 3 children.
So
Alive in 1942. And my grandmother was 84 years old, and he saw her also in Warsaw Ghetto, 1942.
can you remember the date when you left Warsaw?
It was just before Christmas, 1939. When my brother did not return, my mother worried about my older 2 brothers, and she took me and my sister, and one sister was pregnant, married, and was 8 months pregnant, and she said she is not going, she will wait. And we never saw her again. And we never saw, that's how we lost. And the rest came my older sister, the 2 brothers, really 2 sisters. One sister came with my father to Brest-Litovsk. There we were caught, they were caught by the Russian already. It was already 1940.
But the main reason you left Warsaw
It's
was
because they took my brother and never, and sent them, probably in concentration camp. And he did not survive. They
And from there,
we never saw him again.
okay, from there, where did you go? We left
We,
Warsaw.
we went to the border,
Which border?
by the water, by the German and the Rush and the Poland. It was really, they divided Poland in half.
Did you have a specific destination where you were going?
Yes, because
Where?
to Brest-Litovsk.
You had people there? Did somebody
My
help you?
sister's husband's parents.
How did you travel to that border?
First by train. Then we were dressed, we had to buy clothes to look like peasants, like and we knew somebody, really it was our mate's family that lived close by the border. She gave us the address. And on Sunday, he took us, so to say, to church on a wagon. That's how we got through. Later, they somehow must have smartened up, because right after New Year, the border got so tight that, and it was snowing. My father had a frozen toe. The Russian, he couldn't go back. He wanted to go back to the German side. They wouldn't let him. And they wouldn't let him to continue on the Russian side. He was caught by the Russian. But then, so he said, so let me go back. Then they let him, he said his wife is there and children, and he was only wants to visit them. And so they somehow, a big shot, a Russian, let him through with my sister and her husband.
So they were able to cross. When you got to the border, did you have a problem getting across the border?
We were caught at night going to the farmer from the train, and we told them, the Nazi, they had dogs, and the dogs started barking, so came out two big Nazi guys. We told them, we asked them where this place is, and we didn't look Jewish. And so he said, he took us there, and he told the farmer to take good care of us.
Now, this farmer was the friend of your maid?
Mate, a family, not
the
a friend.
family
Family.
of your maid. She was very good to your family.
Yes, she, as a matter of fact, she was in love with my brother Bankier. She wanted to become Jewish, and she was in love with him.
And she was able to get other Gentiles to help too?
Yes, that was her family, and they lived on the border. On this side of the water, there was like Wisla and Warsaw. They had Bug, B-U-G or Bug, I don't know how to spell, but there was a water, like a lake, and that was the dividing border. And they had little bridges, and we were dressed like peasants, you know, sort of, and going to
So how many of
church.
how many of your family ended up getting to this farm?
My two brothers went separate, and we didn't know what happened with them, but somehow, till today, I never asked them, being a child, you know, but they got through. They left about a week before.
And you met them at the farm?
No, we met
I mean,
them in Brest-Litovsk. We met them already by the family, by the in-laws, my parents, my sister's in-laws. We met my two brothers.
But when your family left Warsaw on the train and on the wagon,
it was me and my two sisters, and the husband was already. We were just women.
Your father was not with
No,
you?
my father came later. My sister, the one married sister, went back. Father tried to get through, he couldn't, so he went back to Warsaw. And somehow came somebody and told us this story. So my mother started crying and she wanted to go back. So my sister said, Mom, I'm gonna try. So how she got through, I have no idea. But I told you my sister and my brother-in-law, my father, were laying and almost froze. It snowed already. It was January 1940 or February. I have no idea, but I know they were frozen. They had warm clothes, but not enough to stay outside on the border without nothing, except a little what they had on their shoulder. And I know my father came and it was a happy time. My sister came back. Somehow they got through.
And how long did you stay in that border place on that farm?
Close by the border. They said it was called, I said before, Brest-Litovsk. Until it was May or June, the Russian wanted us to take passports, became Russian citizen and moved 100 miles from the border. And my parents did not want to become Russian citizens.
But you were living on this farm for how long?
No more farm.
No, I mean at the border.
I was there about 5 months.
With your mother?
With my mother and my 2 sisters, but one went back and she came back. And my brother-in-law and my 2 brothers.
So altogether there were?
Well, some friends, neighbors took. We didn't stay all in one place.
I see.
Some neighbors of there took us in. One of my brothers stayed by somebody. I stayed by somebody. And my parents, when my father came, stayed with my sister's husband's parents. We were all scared in the same building, but we were all scared that there wasn't, we didn't stay, could not live together. There was no room. People took us in.
So you did have help to protect you when you were there?
Yes, we did have help, protect from Jewish people, from one of ours. Yes.
There were Jewish people that helped you?
Yes, in Brest-Litovsk, yes.
Did anybody refuse to help you?
Not that I know. You know, being a child, I don't know. I knew I had to live there by those people. They were nice to me. In daytime, my mom cooked, we ate. We saw our parents, you know, but then my mom was cooking and my sister helped and to clean up. And
did you have any kind of money to support yourself?
well, we had some money. My parents did, somehow, I'm sure. My mother's father came back after 25 years in America. Came back in 1939. Before we left, we knew he was about 100 miles from Warsaw. As a matter of fact, we used to go there every summer, and he was killed from the Polacks. He had a lot of money, and he had business taken out of the Wisla, those little paddle stones for highways. And he had those boats and trucks, and he lived in a home arranged, big house with screens, which I never saw that before. Not until I was about 9 or 8 when I remember he put this house up. But that was my mother's father, and he was killed. My grandmother died before the war. He's my mother's mother. So they must have had some money.
So from that border place where you stayed. Where did you go from there?
Oh, once the Russian wanted us to take citizenship, and we didn't want it. My parents didn't want to take it. They went ahead, and one night they knocked on the door.
Who knocked on the door?
The Russian border guards, and gave us 2-3 hours to pack up, and they took us with trucks and guns to the cattle trains. And my father was in Russia for years, 1914 to 1918, and he knew how to read Russian. And he saw on the wagons, those cattle wagons, was written Sibirskaya Железная дорога. That means the train goes to Sibir, дорога, the way to Sibir. And that's how we knew, and that's where they sent us.
Where in Siberia?
In Komia, SSR. Komia, SSR. It was 50 below zero in winter. The inheritance people that lived there were Eskimos.
When you came to...
They made fun of us, and we made fun of them, because they didn't have smallpox when they were children, it seems, and they all were pocked, terrible, and they were laughing from our clothes. And they gave us, I must say, they gave us warm, quilted pants and like the Eskimos, those, it wasn't boots, it was like carpet, indoor, outdoor made boots, like those, that's how they looked, like this carpeting. And they gave us warm hats and jackets.
Okay, so you came to Konya.
Komia,
SSR,
yes.
And how long did it take you to get from the border?
From Brest-Litovsk to there, about 6-7 weeks. Because every morning we stopped somewhere and they gave us hot water. Sometimes they took us on a side street, a side railing, and gave us where to bathe, to take showers. And they did give us water. We had to clear, we had a little curtain to go to the bathroom. There were no other facilities, and we have to clear. They gave us bread, and they gave us, there were many places where we got soup and meat.
This was while you were in the cattle car?
Yes, on the cattle car.
And how many people were in that cattle car?
As a matter of fact, in Canada was a single woman with 3 children, and her daughter became my best friend. She just died recently. She was 89 years old. And my girlfriend was there with the 3 children. She was there, we were there, and a couple of more families. We slept on straw and on...
They had bunks for
bunks, yes. It was one side bunks, 3 layers, 2 layers really, but it was 3. And there was some steps to a little ladder to go up.
So you spent it took you about 6 weeks to get
to Siberia.
Siberia. And what was your life like in that cattle car for 6 weeks? Every day you were allowed to come out?
Yeah, we sang, we laughed, we cried. It was, whatever it was.
But at the end of each day, they let you come off of the cattle car?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I forgot, we wanted to go back home because we heard that my sister had a baby girl, and she couldn't get through anymore. Somehow my mother wanted to leave my two brothers there and go back home. So we stayed in a line, came the SS, who wants to go back home. That was April 1940. We stayed for 3 days in the line with Metro. We changed every time. It took so long. And two women start fighting. One wasn't in the line, and she said she was. The lines were huge, huge. And it took a long time until they took care of a person. You needed the pictures and documents that you are from the other side and those. And they start fighting. And one Nazi that spoke perfect Polish, he was about 7 foot. I never saw any tall man like he came out. He spoke a perfect Polish. And he said, Jews, Jews, where are you pushing yourself? In Polish. He said, Hitler will kill you all. If you would be smart, you would run from here so fast. And when my father heard that, he said to us, let's go, kids. He took us. It was probably that. And he said, let's go. Forever will be, will be. And we did not go back to Poma.
Where did you go?
We stayed
on
in
the
Brest.
train.
No,
Oh, you
that
went back to the
wasn't
border.
I'm still back in border before the Russian took us.
But you were already on your way to Siberia.
No, that was from Brest-Litovsk when in April.
Oh, when this Russian...
1940. I remind myself about that Nazi that's saying, where are you pushing yourself? Hitler will kill you all. If you would be smart, you would run so fast from here.
So that's when you decided to go on that...
Not to go. We didn't want to go. We just decided to stay in Brest-Litovsk.
But from Brest-Litovsk, you had to...
They took us. The border guards
put
came,
you on the train.
and they were the ones with the shotguns. We were under... as a matter of fact, when we came to Communist SSR, and there was a little town, and if we had to go to that little town to cross the water, we had a guy with a gun, a commandant, he was called. He was a Russian, and we had to have his permission not to put to jail. That was in Communist SSR, I'm talking.
So your father decided you should all go...
Back to Brest. I mean, we don't go back to Warsaw. And then came, a few weeks later, came the guards and took us to Siberia.
So now you got to Siberia. It took you 7 weeks.
About 6, 7 weeks, I don't remember.
But you say along the way they did feed you?
They
and give
did
you...
feed us, and sometimes they let us. I cannot say a lie. That's the truth. They gave us bread. They gave us boiling water.
These were the Russians?
The Russians, yes. And certain places we stopped, they gave us soups in containers, cooked soup, and sometimes they gave us some meat in the soup. And sometime also they came and were selling potatoes, but we couldn't buy sometime cooked potatoes, sometime apples. That was the peasants, the Russian. They wanted to make a little money, so they came to those wagons and were selling. Even shrimps. My father ate them. We couldn't even look on it, but he bought it. He said he ate them in Russia. And so, but just to look at them, I didn't know what it was. We didn't want to eat it.
So it took you 7 weeks to get to...
Komyasser. Yes.
All right. When you got there, tell me,
Arhangelskaya Oblast.
what was
And
your...
the city close by was Gorod Siftekar. Gorod means city. safety car. And we were 200 miles from Alaska, from the border.
Was this was in the winter time when you
Yes.
got there?
No, we got in summer, sometime in June, end of June.
Was it real cold at that time?
No, a lot of mosquitoes and potatoes and mushrooms were like this. And bears, of course, they were eating blueberry, a lot of blueberry, and other berries, raspberries, all wild. And we start picking them because we were between water and trees and bears. They were, you could get lost there, but somehow we learned with the sun when I went in summer. And I went 1 year in the Russian school.
Well, let's go back to when your
Yes.
cattle car arrived in this town. Who met you there?
The guy with the gun, with the
Russian.
a Russian.
And where did he take all of you?
Well, then we had to go about 30, 40 miles with a small boat on the water. It wasn't that big, not huge.
From the train right to the boat.
To the boat, yes.
And where did that take you?
They took us to the little island, sort of to say, where, and there were cabins, wooden cabins.
What was the name of the island?
It was it was Komieseser Uchastek. It wasn't. It was Uchastek. That means the area Uchastek. It's so hard. 102. The address was Komieseser. First was Arkhangelskaya Oblast, and then it was Gorod Komieseser Arkhangelskaya Oblast. Gorod Siftekar, the city, Siftekar, the closest, in Uchastek, the area 102. Uchastek 102. The island, I think, there were many around there.
So when they took you off the train, did they take you to
the boat, and from the boat to that area.
And who met you at that area?
The same guy that met us, he became our commandant. He was called the commandant.
And where did they take you? To a house or to a
No
dormitory?
houses. It was made out of round wood cabins, really low cabins. That was the housing.
How many lived in each cabin?
We had a big cabin, our family alone. They gave us. Some shared cabins. We did not share. It was too many people.
How many people was that at the time, just roughly?
My 2 sisters, 1 husband, and my father, my mother, my 2 brothers, and then my brother met. They were 2 sisters, and 1 got married in Brest-Litovsk, that Beniek, and they were 2 sisters. They were also from Warsaw, and then they were with us on the same cattle wagon, and they fall in love, and then my younger brother married later the other sister. So my 2 brothers married 2 sisters.
Okay, so while you were there, were you considered a displaced person or a prisoner?
I would say a prisoner.
Okay, did you live in a village of little cabins or
Low
was it
cabins.
a
It
prisoner's
was a
camp?
village. It was a little
Like a
village.
prisoner's camp?
Yeah, sort of, like a prison. We were with surrounded trees and water and bears, and a few Russians lived there.
How were you treated by the Russians, by the citizens and the
Well,
authorities?
the commandant used to say to us, "You're gonna die here." And we used to say, "Oh no, you're gonna die here," to him. But he did not beat anybody, but if you didn't go to work, then he put you in a
Everybody
jail.
was given a job to do?
Yeah, to cut trees, to branches, even 40 below zero in snow, a tree. I never done that because I was only 14 years old by then. So they had no right to make me go to work, but I had to go to school. So I was allowed to, there was an older man with just an open sort of boat, a little open wooden boat. And we used to, going wasn't bad because his little cabin was right by the water. But coming back, the lake was about 3 miles. We used to, me and my girlfriend, the one that lives now in Toronto, we used to scream, "Paravos, paravos," loud, and the echo came. So then he came for us.
What did that mean, Parvos?
That means, we used to call him Paravos. He was the one that took us. I have no idea, but he was the one after school. The school was in the little town where the Eskimos lived.
What, did they speak Russian?
They all speak Russian, and they spoke their language.
Did you speak Russian at the time?
Sure. I had to go back to the 6th grade because I didn't know the alphabet, the ABC in Russian, and that took me time. But it didn't took me long. The B was different. The B is like a V, like a W, and the rest I don't remember really.
Did the Eskimos go to that same school?
Yes, they did. That was the only school there. So they who wanted to, we went because otherwise we had to go to work, and my father wouldn't let me.
So how long did you go to school there?
I went to school 1 year almost, and then when the war broke out, 1941, when Hitler attacked Russia, there came a Polish government in Russia, in Moscow. And not only Jews were in Siberia, or there were also Gentile Polish people that were there. And somehow they tried, and they, believe it or not, we became free citizens. Not Russian citizens, but free people.
So you weren't considered Polish citizens anymore?
No, we were considered Polish citizens.
But you weren't forced to become a Russian citizen?
No, we were not
Were you
forced.
guarded at the time you were there?
Not after we were freed. Before we were guarded with the Nachalnik, that's what they call him. Big shot. You know, he was the one that said that we're going to die there.
So how long were you there before you became a free citizen?
About 17 months, till August. 15 months, really.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about your living conditions there. You lived in these cabins.
Yes.
Did they...
Log cabins.
Log cabins. Were they heated?
We had, wood was plenty there. There was nothing, there was a factory where they cut for trains, for the railroad, those ties. A lot of little boats were going, and they had to, those branches, the higher was cut like 3-footers, and by the water put up big lines, and came those boats, and they took him. So the boats were able to go with that wood. And there was a whole factory. Wood was plenty.
You could just go out and pick it up and bring it back to your cabin?
Yes, and branches, and this was plenty. We were not cold.
So did you...
Only outside you were cold.
If there was any illness, did they have any kind of medical care for you?
I don't remember. There was, if you had a cold, there was like a nurse or
A Russian.
my sister had a baby. She had it in the little Eskimo town in hospital. January 6th she was born, and it was about January 9th. There, in winter, we didn't need the guy Parabos because it was frozen like rock. So you just walked through the little lake, the lake that was. But in summer, there were a lot of wood there that they sent it, I don't know where, or I didn't work. So, but my father did and my brothers. And they did get paid.
The Russians paid them.
Yes, they did pay, and we had a store where we could buy halva even, and all, grits and potatoes, and anything in meats. I don't remember. I know I wasn't hungry.
And you had plenty of warm clothing to get you through those cold winters?
Yes, first they gave us, and then if you could buy in the store. They had chocolates. You could get everything your heart wishes for money to buy.
How about sanitary facilities?
I don't remember. I think outside. Every cabin had outside. I think so. You know what? I don't remember. But we did have where to shower in steam. It was like hot stones, and you throw water on it. Underneath was the flame going, and the stones were red, and you throw water, and that made steam.
So you
sweat and steam.
So you felt secure while you were in Siberia at
Yes,
that time?
I did feel secure.
How long did you stay in this village?
In August, I would say 15 months.
Where did you go from there?
They freed us. We went to Tashkent.
At that point, the war was over?
No, the war,
Oh.
by then Hitler was already in Ukraine. He went fast. He attacked in June or beginning of July, and end of August, when we left, almost, he was already in Ukraine, or maybe close by Leningrad. He went very fast.
And when you say you stayed there 15 months and they freed you, what did they say to you?
You are free. You can go where you want it, and you can stay here as free people and do what you wanted. And as a matter of fact, they said, don't go. There is so much refugee. You're going to die from hunger.
So what did you do? Where did you go
We
next?
were afraid that we don't leave the place, that we will never get out. We didn't trust Stalin.
So where did you go?
We went to Tashkent. We lived.
How did you get to Tashkent?
Tashkent by train. They let us go. They gave us their...
Not in cattle cars anymore.
No. Yeah, I don't remember. I still think in cattle cars, because we also went with the boat. First we went with the boat all the way to Arkhangelsk. Arkhangelsk. We went by the boat much farther. Then with a train to Tashkent. There we lived in the streets.
What do you mean you lived in the streets?
We lived in the street. We slept and lived in the street. My brother's baby died. They took it to a hospital, left the little body there, 6 months old, a little girl. My father got typhus and died. There were no doctors.
How long were you in Tashkent?
after my father died. Altogether about 3.5 weeks.
And the whole time you had no
No
shelter
housing.
to go into?
No housing. As a matter of fact, they stole the papers from us. We stayed in line for some bread. We were hungry. We would have loved to eat a piece of stale bread. Somehow my brother got a hold on some few pieces stale bread. We ate.
Was there anybody taking care of you while you were in the street?
No.
Nobody offered to help? No organization?
No, there was so many Russian refugees from Moscow, from Leningrad, from Odessa. A lot of Jews and Russian Jews. A lot of Russian Jews. They must have heard about Germany, because there were awful lot of Jewish people. And they all were hungry. They all lived in the streets. It was impossible. And Ukraine was lost. That was the bread.
What time of year was this?
That was 1941.
Was it winter?
Well, there is warm. It's like Florida.
In Tashkent.
Tashkent, yes.
So you
It's
living in
Uzbekistan.
so living in
It's
the street,
Uzbekistan.
you were not in very cold weather.
No, no. It was 41 August, maybe till we got there was in the September, or September.
Were you living under guarded?
No guard,
No guards?
nothing.
You could just go and come as you pleased.
Yeah,
on the
no
street.
guard. On the streets we lived. Of course, we stayed all together. We slept even on the street.
So from Tashkent, where did you go?
We went to Kyrgyzstan, to Frunze,
How did you get there?
by train. We still had money, and we left. There, we were also hungry. You know something? They put us in a farm.
Who put you there?
The government, the Russian government, and a kolkhoz. It's a called kolkhoz. It's a
Commune.
Like commune.
How long did it take you to get from Tashkent to Kyrgyzstan?
Not long. That wasn't that bad. Maybe less than a week. But then we end up, all of us, in hospital.
You traveled the whole week on a train.
Yes. Then we end up all with typhus.
In
My
Kyrgyzstan.
my father died. There was no doctor. He was sick about 8 days. And they carried him on a ladder. And we went by a little house and came out. They looked like Uzbeks. In Uzbekistan, we call them Uzbeks. Then people that lived there. In Kyrgyzstan, what the Kyrgyz. But in Uzbekistan came out and they told us to put the body down. And they were Jews, but they looked like Uzbeks and they said a prayer over my father's body.
Could you tell us what an Uzbek is?
Uzbek, from Uzbekistan, that's how they call. Uzbek, they looked exactly like Uzbeks, but they were Jews.
Oh, when you say they look like Uzbek,
With their eyes almost like Chinese, a little bit,
like Mongolian.
a little Mongolian sort of, yeah, and that's the Uzbeks. The Kyrgyz looked different. The Kyrgyz looked like Arabs. And in a way, they act like them. They have 3, 4 wives. And there was nothing that the Russian could do. Even it wasn't allowed. They didn't care. They still have 3, 4 wives who could afford her. But it was quiet. They always took a new wife. They look more like the Arabs.
So how long did you live in Kyrgyzstan?
You mean from
From Tashkent, you went to Kyrgyzstan?
Kyrgyzstan. First, they put us in a farm, in a commune. There, it was already, corn was in the bloom. We were starving because we didn't still work. It was around February, maybe January. There were no, it wasn't a time to plant, or was it already planted, but there wasn't new crop. So we had nothing to work. They wouldn't give us to eat, like flour or, so there were corn growing, and we didn't know that you can eat it. We could have taken corn and not starve. But, you know, we never saw any corn growing. As a matter of fact, my sister-in-law was pregnant, the other one, the younger one, that my brother just died a year ago in Israel. She was pregnant and starving, and we worried she might lose the baby. And it was the beginning of 1942, because she's the first one to carry my father's name. You know, by Jews we give. And we wanted so badly that the baby survived to carry my father's name. And somehow she did, had a nice baby, and we all end up a few days, and all of us in hospital with typhus, except my mother.
She didn't catch it.
My mother didn't, because she had it in Poland when she was a child.
And did you all recuperate from it?
We all recuperate. My oldest sister was the most wild one. They already went home, everybody, but I was, the two brothers and two sister-in-laws, but I was left with that oldest sister.
So how long did you live on the farm in Kyrgyzstan?
Not very long. We went to the city.
What city did you go to?
To Frunze.
Frunze?
Yeah. And I must say I had to do black market, otherwise we would starve to death. One brother, they took the two brothers on truth front, not to the front to fight, but working. We didn't know where they were. So was left my one sister-in-law, the one that lost the baby, the 6-month little girl. In meantime, she had a baby boy, and the other one had already a couple of months old baby, and we had no money, but I had a tablecloth still from home with 12 napkins. I went out and I sold it, and I bought potatoes. I bought 6 potatoes for that. Came a guy, it was late already, there were nobody. I was sort of looking, I had still a few ruble. I thought maybe I should buy an onion so my mother can make a soup. And I went, and came a guy, and he said to sell him 2 potatoes. And I said, if he gives me 20 ruble. I sold for 40 ruble and bought the 6 potatoes for 30. And he did. And I took that 20 ruble and went up next day on the market. It was called Bazaar. And those farmers used to bring to sell. And I bought for about 10 potatoes. And the morning was cheaper. And I waited till 4 o'clock. I kept 4 potatoes, and I sold 6 potatoes for 60 ruble later on. And I liked that, and brought a few potatoes, and I was only 15 and a half years old, and I became a big businesswoman. My mother stood in the back, and I was never hungry again after that. I promised myself when I see the Gone with the Wind, when she promised that she will never be hungry again. That day when I sold the 2 potatoes, I promised myself that I will never be hungry again. Even if I got to jail, we were not allowed to do it. But I done it because otherwise we would all die from hunger. And they didn't give us nothing. Because the war was, they didn't have themselves. The Russian, the people that lived there did not have much. You know,
So you became an entrepreneur when you were
yeah.
15 years old. How long were you in Frunze?
All the time until we came to Germany. Until the Russians said we can go home. But the Polacks were killing us. We still just crossed the border and they shot and killed a Jew. And so we went, I think it was already then the Haganah.
Do you remember when you got out of Russia? What year?
Yes, until we made the papers, until they said we can, it was already around March 1946 already. It was almost 9 months after, maybe 8 months, because it took us 2 months on the trains to get home, and also on cattle train.
2 months to get from Frunze. Where did you go?
To Poland, to Poland. It was the Poland that Poland took from the German, Wrocław. That's where they took us. I went back only 4 years ago to Warsaw, just recently, because my husband for 20 years wanted to go back.
When you say they took you, who took you?
I really think it was the Haganah.
The Haganah, the Hayas.
The Hayas with Israeli boys were there. Because the Polacks were killing us, and the people that came back to Poland, they were, if you went and asked for your home or something, they said, yeah, I give you. And before you know it, they got you, you disappeared. You never was found again.
So when the Haganah and Hayas took you, was that to a displaced persons camp?
No, it was in Wrocław. They gave us housing, they gave us food.
Who gave it to you?
I think it was the Jewish Federation.
Okay.
And then we were taken and into first was Czechoslovakia, then Vienna. We stayed at the Rothschilds Hospital there. There was the get-together. Then from Vienna we had, that's why we have so little pictures, because they told us we had to go through the Russian. Or it was to Vienna, from Czechoslovakia to Vienna, or it was from Vienna to Munich, Germany. I don't know. First stop was Munich, and then they take us to the, we end up in Vilsik.
Was that a displaced persons
camp? Yes. Used to be military, but my sister went back to Poland. She looked very gentle. She said she has to see what happened. She came back and she said nobody survived. And she said that the Polacks, said, from where is so many Jews survived? After the Jews came back from the partisans, from the few concentration camps, from Russia, freed. And of course, my husband, he went and nobody survived. He wanted to go, he just went, and somebody told him, that he went to Munich to register, and he found out a cousin was in another displaced person came from his town, and he went to her, and she says, "Don't go back. Your father was driven and had to dig a grave." His father happened to be Orthodox, beginning of 1942, and was shot. His mother and three sisters with some children. The three brother-in-laws, she didn't know what happened, but his mother was by, they used to have orchards in summer, and they had basements where they kept the apples and pears for the winter in cool basements. And they had some Polish friends, and they kept them. She doesn't know what happened to two other sisters with the children, but one sister with two children and his mother lived until she was on Catholic papers, Irish papers, they call it. And so they didn't know she was Jewish, and they killed them 3 months before the Russian walked in. Somebody, another Polak, said that they're here, and I think that this person hides Jews. And they shot her right there, and they shot that Polish couple also.
Do you remember when you entered Vilcek, the displaced persons camp?
Yes.
What, do you remember that?
It was, I think, May month 1946. That's when we came to Germany.
And that was the only place that you could go, was to a displaced persons camp?
What else could we do? It was Germany. We had no money. We had no homes. We didn't have much clothes even.
What was the facility like at this place?
The facility was wonderful because it was military people were living there.
Germans?
Germans. Germans. Before there was a camp for the wives and family, Germans, soldiers. We had 2 rooms, and we had water and hot water and bathrooms, and it was a normal, not big, but...
and you were all fairly comfortable there. You all were together in one spot?
Yeah, we had not in one area, but 5 minutes throughout yeah.
Was the entrance of the camp checked by anybody?
Yes, Jewish police became.
Jewish guards?
Guards, yes.
How did you manage to support yourself in the camp?
We couldn't, because there were no work for us. The highest supported.
Did they have any special activities for you in the camps? Did they have any religious activities?
There was a hospital. I had my baby girl there. I got pregnant there and was born there.
Did they have any educational facilities for the children?
Not that I know. My son was 2 years and 3 months when my daughter was born, 1947. In August, she was born.
Where did you meet your husband?
I met him in Russia, in Kyrgyzstan.
Had you known each other before?
No, I met him he was in the partisans till 1942, and then ran with the Russians. And later, when he came on this side of Moscow, he got on a train and he came to us. Not really to us, 150 miles, kilometers, really. And he worked in a sugar factory. and he was getting 300 ruble. And for 300 ruble, he only could buy 1 kilogram bread on the black market. And how much sugar could he eat? So he made some shoulder pad and was taking out some sugar in exchange for bread, or a little butter, or a little sour cream, or a little, they had a lot of lambs there, lamb meat, most of it was, or a piece of meat. And once he got caught. When he got caught, you see, they called it black market. If you tried, like I did, bought and sell, if they would catch you, you would get 8 years jail in Russia. For stealing, you got 1 year. So he was alone, so he said, in case they catch me, I will only go for a year. And if I do buying and selling, I'm all alone. For money, you could get out. He said, who's going to buy me out? Even he had a little money hidden, some, digged in. So he says when he was sort of waiting to be put in jail, the guy was riding. He started walking, and he walked, and then the guy screamed, stop or I shoot. He was shooting. But people were walking, and he ran all the way to us, and he changed his name from Bankier to his mother's name.
What was his mother's name?
Goldberg, maiden name. And when I met him, he was a Goldberg. But then when we got married, he told me about it. He became back and in Russia, all you needed was 50 kilometers and nobody bothered, because he didn't kill nobody. All they caught him with was that little sugar.
Did you ever speak to any German people after the liberations?
You want to know the truth? I hate the Germans.
You were never near any of them, or never had a
I
chance?
spoke German because my children, we didn't came to America till 1951, and my son went to kindergarten over there. He was 5 years old. It's in Germany, you're 6 years old, you start school, and kindergarten when you're 5. And so I let him go to, and they spoke, children were playing with children, and they spoke only German. Because my children didn't know one word English. My husband would not allow to speak Polish because he so hurt.
But it wasn't as though you weren't near Germans. You were near German people. Your children
No,
were...
we had nothing to do. We were between you mean in Stuttgart? It was a street, but it was a camp. Oh, we spoke German just
no
from
Germans
the radio.
no Germans came
No
in.
Germans, no.
You were
I
not
had
in
nothing
contact.
to do with the Germans.
When
And
did-
we cuss the Germans. We don't, and my husband hers, when people speak Polish, he runs away. And I don't want to hurt him. He's got nobody left, so I don't want to hurt him. And
On what date did you leave the displaced persons camp?
in 1950, I wanted to go to Israel because my brothers and mother went. My husband was operated, and he had passed. It was already busted, what they call, and it busted. It was
The appendix?
it appendix, and it busted. So he was in Stuttgart in the hospital when they left to Israel.
Well, I'd like to back up just a little bit. You were
Yes.
in the displaced persons camp in Vilcek.
Yes,
From Vilcek, where did you?
they finished to Stuttgart. They liquidated the Vilcek camp and to Stuttgart.
And how long were you there?
until I came to America.
About-
From about 1940, beginning 49 to 19 February 51.
And what enabled you to leave the displaced persons camp?
To go to America.
Well, you said you wanted to go to Israel. Did you change
I
your
wanted
mind?
to go to Israel, but when my family came, 1949, late 49, they lived in the streets and didn't have housing, didn't have much to eat. They told me, don't come. Go where you want it, but don't come. So we registered to America. 1950, it came to go to the American consul. I cried terrible. I wanted my family. My two sisters also went to Israel. I was alone. I did not want to go to America. I went to the rabbi and he says to me, my child, you go where your husband goes. And I had two children, and as a matter of fact, when I arrived to New York, I never stopped crying for 6 months. Other people were waiting, family for them. They kissed them, they cried. I cried because nobody was waiting for me. I said to my husband, see, if I would go to Israel, my family would have waited for me.
Well, what date did you leave Europe? Do you remember what the date was?
It was, I tell you, we had 12 days. It was in February. We had to fly from Stuttgart to Bremerhaven. And by plane, they took us. And came a guy, and the belonging was sealed, but we only took to change what we could carry. The rest came later on. And to America came. And we were 12 days quarantined because there were measles. Even my children had the measles, but I didn't have nobody to go to the doctor to get the papers. I didn't know that they did have the measles. So they kept us for 12 days. After the quarantine, they put us General Stewart's boat, a military boat. And we went.
That was the name of the boat, the General Stewart?
General Stewart it was. And we arrived, we stopped in Canada, unload some passengers, and we continue to New York. We arrived April 6th, 1951 to America, and April 7th to Champaign, Illinois, next day.
Why did you go to Champlain?
That's what we were supposed to go to Helena, Montana. Yes. But since I could have come to 1950 to America, but I tried to go to Israel. And I couldn't win with my husband. So I came. Otherwise I would have lost, and I did lose the job. My husband was in Helena, Montana. So New York sent me to Champaign, Illinois. My husband learned the profession a tailor.
He went to Helena?
No.
No. You both went to Champlain.
We both went to Champaign. He learned a trade while we were in the camps, to tailoring.
Okay.
And he had a job in Helena, Montana. But the men, since 1950, we didn't came. He got another tailor. And in Champaign, Illinois, was needed a tailor. So they sent us to Champaign. That's how we end up in Champaign, Illinois. My husband started to work for $35 a week because he couldn't speak English, not one word.
Did private people or Jewish agencies help you?
They did in New York, gave us $200.
Who was that? Who gave you that?
The highest. I
Highest.
think it's the highest it was. Or the joint.
Joint Jews
Joint.
Distribution Committee.
Yeah,
JDC.
or the joint. I have no idea.
So it was just your family, your husband, and your two children,
To
and
my
yourself
boy and my daughter, yes.
that traveled here.
Here
And
to
the rest
America.
of your family went to Israel.
Israel. They went almost 2 years, about a year and a half before me. They went the end of 49, after the war ended. Immediately after the war.
Did you work when you got here too?
No, my husband worked. I couldn't speak. I didn't know how to drive a car. We couldn't get housing in town. We had to a few miles in Kenwood, not in Champaign. Nobody wanted you with 2 children. It was impossible. So we got out of town. There were no buses going there. It wasn't the city limit. And so I had no choice. My husband learned to drive. He took lessons in Germany also, and he knew how to drive. So for the first $40, we bought an old jalopy. I wish we would keep it. It was a 1933 Ford for $40. And it didn't take long. There was a Jewish store that we did bring a sewing machine from Germany because we were going to take it to Israel, and we didn't sell it back. So my husband took out there were 2 brothers' agreements. They came before the war, and they gave us work, like shortened pants and sleeves and other, smaller the back. And so my husband worked Sundays and evenings. And it didn't take long. After 15 months, we opened a little tailor shop on the campus and started taking in cleaning. And as a matter of fact, about a year later, those 2 brothers bought for us 50 tuxedos.
Who were the 2 brothers?
The Greemans.
Who were the Greemans?
They came from Europe also, from Poland, but they came before the war.
Okay. Did you, what date did you get married?
I got married D-Day, 1944, June 6th. Gonna be
And that was
52 years.
And that was in
Frunze.
Frunze.
And my baby was born a year later there.
How many children do you have now?
3. One was born in Champaign. I have one from Russia, one from Germany, and one from Champaign.
When you first came to this country, did you speak of the Holocaust to anybody?
No. No, just if somebody asked my husband, he said nobody survived, but we did not speak.
Would you be able to share with us why you couldn't or you wouldn't speak about it?
It's too painful.
In later years, did you ever speak of your experiences with anyone else?
Not really. You couldn't get my husband for the interview. Because
Okay. You were never a part of any survivor groups?
my daughter drives the car, goes around Champaign high schools, and we have many small towns, and she goes around and talks about this. Too bad I didn't bring the magazine from the university high school.
What was the reaction of people when they heard her speak?
Well, she was, they had her speeches, I guess. I'm sure they can't believe that it's true. I have somewhere the writing that whatever she was telling the children, and she says that there is never, even after the war, and no matter what you achieve, that there is still a little madness in the survivors, you know.
Well, in order for her to go around to the schools and discuss your experience, you must have had many discussions with her.
Really, what happened was they used to ask, why? Why did they kill father's parents? Why did they kill your brothers? Why did they kill your sister? You know, your grandmother. Why and why and why? Until they caught Eichmann. And when Eichmann was caught, they showed on television 2-3 hours a documentary. Then I made them sit down, my son and my daughter, and they showed Remember Us. And they sat like glued to the television, and they saw the graves, the bodies, the gas chambers, the whole thing. Now all my grandchildren went through with the Walk for Life through Poland and Israel, each one of them in high school. But that's how then my daughter and my son realized really what happened, and the vegans and with the Star of David and with the Warsaw Ghetto when the Jews fought. You know, I think that's why nobody survived from my family in Warsaw, because what happened there.
Mrs. Bankier, what do you feel is the most important lesson of the Holocaust?
I cannot, that it should never happen again. When I see the Nazis, I die inside. I remember even living in Warsaw for 3 months. They marched those boats. We were in Italy. My husband likes to casinos, and it was in where the houses on the water. I'm a little nervous. Venice. We were in Venice. Yeah, we were in Venice. And while we were, the transportation there is with boats. There is underwater. And we asked a lady where there is, we knew the casino and which one we should take to that casino. And it's like buses. So she said, this one, I am also going this stop. And then she said to us, somehow she recognized that we are Jewish. And she said, I am surprised, and she maybe was Jewish. I'm surprised that you're going there. And I said, why? She said, because Hitler stayed in that casino with Mussolini. Well, somehow we got there and walked in, and the steps were marble going up high, and it was such a wide area, and the casino was upstairs. Honest to God, I heard German boots, Nazi boots, walking on those steps. And my husband got such a chill also, and he says, let's get out of here fast. And we went right back and got the boat and got to the hotel.
Before we close, is there anything you should like to mention about your experiences during the Holocaust that I have not asked you about yet?
Really, what more can I say? I was in Poland, and we went to each camp, And in each camp it's sadness. But the worst there was Treblinka. There was stones for each city. And there is only a little stone, Warsaw. And it's only on miles, maybe 40 miles, 70 kilometers from Warsaw. And most of the Jews disappeared there. And only a little stone, and it says Warszawa. That's all. The Polacks made every beautiful things, only little stone and a monument. Now in Majdanek there is the ovens and the bones and ashes, and there is more. That's my brother.
I appreciate your bringing some photographs with you that we would like to share.
I don't
With
have
others.
much because
If you could, I'm going to hold them up, and then you can tell me.
that's my oldest brother, was in the Polish
Let's wait until
army.
it gets on there.
Right. Angle it straight. Yeah.
He thought he was smart at nothing.
No, we are not seeing the picture.
He thought he was smart, that he looks like he was a blonde and looks Polish. His friends will help him. They didn't.
There we are. Could you tell us who this is in this
That's
picture?
my oldest brother, Roman, and he was in Polish military.
How old was he
soldier.
there?
He was about 20 years old there.
And what happened to Roman?
He disappeared from the world. We don't know what, probably gas chamber or.
Who is this?
That's my father. Now he died on typhus.
Of typhus.
Yes, 1941.
And where was it that he died?
He died in not from Tashkent.
In Tashkent, in
yeah,
Russia?
we lived in this street. That's my sister-in-law and three, my nephews. My nephew and that's a cousin, and that's my three that Hitler killed them. My nieces and my nephew. And my sister-in-law, and that's a cousin.
Where was this picture taken?
In Warsaw.
In Poland.
Yeah, in Poland. Then you have another one.
And now we have,
You have another one, I think. No. You have another one. That's when my brother, this one here.
oops,
Yeah.
all right. Who is this family?
This is my niece. That's a grandchild. My two sisters, and that's a cousin mine. My mother's sister's daughter also disappeared. This one here is my sister that Hitler killed, the one that had the baby with her husband. That her husband's parents lived in Brest-Litovsk. My niece, I, and the brother that Hitler took away after the war.
How many of these people survived?
The
the
two
Holocaust?
sisters and I, just three.
All right, and now we have a happier picture.
Yes, that's my
Happier
50th
times.
wedding anniversary.
Your
Yes,
50th wedding anniversary.
anniversary in Northbrook. That's in Illinois. Northbrook. The children made us.
And those are your children and your
Those are
grandchildren?
my children and my spouses, my children's, my husband, my grandson, and 4 granddaughters.
Well, it's wonderful that you could have come through the terrible experiences that you did and still raise such a beautiful family. Mrs. Bankier, we want to thank you very much for sharing these experiences with us today.
Thank you.
Oops. This has been Bess Sullivan interviewing Felicia Bankier about her experiences as a survivor of the Nazi Holocaust. This interview will be included as a valuable contribution to the Oral History Center of the Holocaust Documentation Center, Incorporated.